My name is Alex Parker, and I'm 30 years old. Most of my adult life has been about cleaning up after my younger brother Tyler, fixing his messes, covering his bills, and stepping in whenever he messed something up. And trust me, that happened a lot. Tyler is 25, but he acts like a rebellious teenager, never holding a steady job, never saving a dime, and never facing the consequences of his actions. Somehow, it all became my problem. Our parents, Richard and Diane Parker, decided long ago that Tyler was just too fragile for the real world. He's just a free spirit, Mum would say, as if that justified his endless mistakes. Dad just didn't deal with him at all. He preferred to ignore the chaos and pretend everything was fine. So when Tyler dropped out of college and moved back home, guess who became his unofficial babysitter? Alex, you've always been the responsible one, Mum would insist. Tyler just needs a little guidance. That little guidance turned into years of financial and emotional drain. I paid his rent when he couldn't manage it. I covered his credit card debt when he maxed it out on parties and gadgets. I even paid his car insurance because he just forgot again. I kept telling myself he's my brother, he'll figure it out eventually. But he never did. And then one day he crossed a line I couldn't ignore. It started with a text, short, casual, and entirely oblivious. Tyler, hey man, took your car for the weekend, you weren't using it right. I stared at my phone, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. My car, the one I worked overtime to afford, I called him immediately, my heart pounding. What do you mean you took my car? I demanded, struggling to keep my voice steady. Tyler's tone was annoyingly nonchalant. Relax, Alex. Just needed it for a road trip. You're always at work anyway. That's not the point, I snapped. You didn't even ask. He just laughed. You're being dramatic. I'll bring it back in one piece, promise. My gut told me I should have gone straight to my parents, but I knew exactly how that conversation would go. Mom, Alex, it's just a car. You're overreacting. Tyler didn't mean any harm. Dad, you're the older brother. You should be setting an example. I decided to let it go for now, but that decision came back to haunt me when my phone buzzed at 2 a.m. Tyler's name flashed on the screen. Groggy and half asleep, I picked up. Alex, he sobbed, barely coherent. I got into an accident. I bolted upright, sleep, completely forgotten. What are you hurt? He sniffled. I think I'm okay, but the car, it's totaled. My heart sank. I didn't hear much after that. My car, my responsibility. Can you come here? Tyler pleaded, his voice trembling. The cops are being so unfair. Just tell them it's all okay. That familiar feeling of responsibility kicked in, but something inside me snapped. No, I said, my voice low and controlled. There was a stunned silence. Tyler scoffed as if I'd just slapped him. You're kidding, right? You're really going to let your little brother deal with this alone? Yes, I replied, steady and calm. You took my car without asking. You crashed it. You need to take responsibility. His response was pure outrage. Unbelievable. After everything I've been through, you're just going to abandon me. You're a terrible brother. But I didn't budge. I've spent my whole life cleaning up your messes. Not this time. I hung up, heart racing, but resolute. The next morning, the fallout began. Text after text from my parents, all blaming me. Mom, how could you abandon Tyler? He could have died. Dad, you need to fix this. Family comes first. I didn't respond. For the first time, I was done. But Tyler wasn't. A few days later, the police knocked on my door. I opened it, still half expecting to see my brother standing there with some apology. Instead, 2 officers greeted me. Alex Parker, one of them asked. Yeah, I replied, confused. We're here regarding a stolen vehicle report, the officer continued. Your brother claims you stole his car, crashed it, and left him at the scene. My mind went blank. Wait, what? That's my car. He took it without permission. The officer didn't react. Do you have proof of ownership? I quickly pulled up the registration on my phone, showing them the documents. The officer glanced over it, his expression unchanged. Tyler had flipped the entire story, and as expected, my parents backed him up. I could feel my blood boiling, but I stayed calm. I'd like to file my own report, I said firmly. Tyler Parker stole my vehicle without consent. I want to press charges. The officer hesitated. You're sure about that? I looked him dead in the eyes, absolutely. And that was it, the moment I knew I was finally taking back control. The days after I filed the police report were surreal. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Tyler had shifted from panic to outright rage, leaving me frantic voice messages that I deleted without listening to. My parents' texts were a chaotic mix of guilt trips and outright demands. "Mom, Alex, how could you do this? Your brother is scared and alone. Dad, drop this now. You're ruining Tyler's life over a mistake." I ignored every single message. For the first time in years, I wasn't going to bend. The real shock came when I got a call from Tyler's boss at his latest dead-end job. I didn't even know he had listed me as an emergency contact. "Boss, Mr. Parker, this is Diane Rivers from Clearview Technologies. I'm calling about your brother, Tyler Parker." I braced myself. "What's this about?" Her voice took on a professional but cautious tone. "Your brother has missed several shifts, and we just received word that he's been involved in some legal trouble. He listed you as his primary contact. Are you aware of his situation?" I almost laughed. "Oh, I'm aware, trust me." There was a brief, awkward pause. "I'm just calling to confirm whether or not he's still employed here. Given the circumstances, we're reviewing his status." I took a deep breath. I wouldn't count on him coming back anytime soon. The line went quiet for a moment. "Understood. Thank you for your time." I hung up, the reality settling in. Tyler's life was about to crumble, and he had no one to blame but himself. But the real blow came 2 days later when my parents showed up at my apartment. I heard the heavy thud of my father's footsteps before I even opened the door. When I did, I found both of them standing there, faces tight with anger and worry. I crossed my arms, blocking the doorway. "What do you want?" Mum's voice was sharp, her eyes red. "We need to talk about this mess you've made." I let out a bitter chuckle. The mess I made, really. Dad pushed past me, barging into my apartment like he owned the place. Mum followed her perfume, a sharp, invasive presence. I closed the door behind them more out of habit than desire to continue this conversation. "You need to drop this nonsense," Dad snapped, turning to face me with his arms crossed. "You've reported your own brother to the police. Do you even hear yourself?" I leaned against the wall, arms still folded. "He stole my car, crashed it, and then lied to the cops about it. You expect me to just let that slide?" Mum's eyes filled with tears, her voice shaking. "He's your brother, Alex. You're supposed to protect him." I clenched my jaw, feeling the familiar heat of frustration rise in my chest. I've been protecting him my whole life, and look where it got me: a trashed car police at my door, and my own parents siding with him. Where's my protection, huh? Dad's face flushed a deep, angry red. "This is family, Alex. You don't turn your back on family." I let out a sharp, bitter laugh. "Oh, so that's what this is, family." Because from where I'm standing, it feels more like a one-sided agreement where I'm the only one making sacrifices. Mum took a step closer, her hands wringing together like she was trying to crush the very air between them. "He needs you, Alex. You can't just abandon him." I felt something snap inside me, a final thread that had been holding my patience together. Know what he needs is to grow up. What he needs is to face the consequences of his actions for once in his life. And if you can't see that, then you're just as much a part of the problem as he is. For a moment, the room was filled with nothing but the sound of our heavy breathing. Then Dad stepped forward, his voice low and dangerous. "If you don't drop this, if you don't take back that police report you're out, we won't have you in this family anymore." I felt a cold, sharp clarity cut through my anger. I looked him dead in the eyes, my voice steady. Maybe I've never been a part of this family. Maybe I was just the safety net you guilted into keeping this whole dysfunctional mess together. He flinched, the words hitting him harder than I expected. Mum's hand shot up to her mouth, her eyes wide with disbelief. I walked to the door, opened it, and gestured for them to leave. "You want to disown me? Fine. I'd rather be alone than stuck cleaning up after Tyler's messes for the rest of my life." Mum let out a strangled sob, but Dad just glared at me, his jaw clenched so tight I thought his teeth might crack. They shuffled past me, their footsteps heavy with anger and shock. I shut the door behind them, locking it with a sense of finality that felt both liberating and terrifying. For the first time, I realized I might actually lose my family over this. And for the first time, I was okay with that. I didn't hear from my parents or Tyler for a full week after that confrontation. It was like being in the eye of a storm, too quiet, too calm. But I knew it wouldn't last. Then one morning my phone buzzed. It was a call from an unknown number. I hesitated, then picked up. "Alex Parker," a firm voice asked. Speaking, I replied, my stomach tightening. "This is Officer Hernandez with the Metro Police Department. We need you to come down to the station to discuss your brother's allegations." My blood ran cold. This was it, the move I knew Tyler would try to pull if his back was against the wall. I took a deep breath, gripping the phone tightly. "Of course," I said, forcing my voice to stay calm. "I'll be there." When I walked into the station, the air felt heavy. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as an officer led me into a small, windowless room. I took a seat, the cold metal chair creaking under me. Across the table sat Officer Hernandez, a stern-looking man with sharp eyes and a thick file in front of him. "Mr. Parker." He began flipping open the folder. "We've reviewed the reports from both you and your brother. There are some serious discrepancies." I leaned back, my jaw tightening. Discrepancies. He slid a stack of papers toward me. I recognized the frantic handwriting immediately, Tyler's statement. I skimmed the first few lines, my eyes narrowing as I read his twisted version of events. According to Tyler, I had stolen his car, crashed it while drunk, and abandoned him at the scene, leaving him to deal with the police alone. He even claimed I'd threatened him when he tried to reach out for help. "This is a complete lie," I said, my voice sharper than I intended. Hernandez leaned back, his eyes never leaving my face. "Do you have any evidence to support your side of the story?" I reached into my pocket, pulling out my phone. I scrolled through my messages, finding the one Tyler had sent me, the one where he admitted to taking my car without permission. I slid the phone across the table. "Read that," I said, my heart pounding. Hernandez picked up the phone, his eyes scanning the screen. I watched his expression shift, the faintest flicker of surprise crossing his face. He set the phone down, folding his hands in front of him. "All right," he said, his tone a shade less severe. "That certainly changes things." He scribbled a few notes before looking up again. "But you should know your parents have also submitted statements supporting your brother's version of events. They claim you've always had a strained relationship with Tyler and that you've threatened him in the past." I felt a cold knot form in my chest. Of course they had. I could practically hear my mother's tearful voice painting me as the ungrateful, spiteful older brother, the one who never understood her precious, fragile son. "I have no idea what they're talking about," I replied, forcing my hands to stay still on the table. "I've spent years cleaning up after Tyler, paying his bills, covering his mistakes. This isn't the first time he's tried to use me as a scapegoat." Hernandez leaned back, tapping his pen against the edge of the table. "If what you're saying is true, you might want to consider pressing formal charges. Otherwise, this is going to turn into a messy case of he said, she said." I let out a slow breath, the weight of the situation settling on my shoulders. I had tried to avoid this to keep things civil, but Tyler had crossed a line I couldn't ignore. My own parents had chosen his lies over my truth, and now they were backing his attempt to ruin my life. I met Hernandez's eyes, my jaw set. "I want to press charges," I said firmly. "Grand theft auto, filing a false police report, and defamation." He gave a single approving nod. "All right then, we'll need you to sign some paperwork and provide any other evidence you have." I leaned forward, the anger in my chest hardening into a cold, sharp resolve. "You'll have it." As I walked out of that police station, I felt a strange, unfamiliar sensation creeping into my chest, relief. For the first time, I wasn't just reacting to Tyler's chaos. I was pushing back, refusing to be his victim anymore. But I also knew this was just the beginning. If Tyler wanted a war, I was done playing defense. For a while, things went quiet again. No more angry texts, no surprise visits from my parents, and Tyler had gone completely silent. I should have felt relieved, but instead a cold, anxious knot twisted in my gut. This felt too easy, too quiet. Then one evening, as I sat scrolling through my emails, a familiar name popped up in my inbox, an email from my mother. I hesitated, my finger hovering over the delete button, but curiosity got the better of me. I clicked it open. Subject: family first. Alex, I can't believe you've let this go this far. Your brother is devastated. He's lost his job. His friends are distancing themselves, and he's on the verge of being evicted. I hope you're happy. This isn't the brother I raised. You need to fix this. Families don't do this to each other. Mom. I stared at the screen, my jaw tightening with every word. There it was, the same emotional manipulation I'd been dealing with for years, wrapped in a thin layer of guilt and expectation. I took a deep breath, leaning back in my chair, the soft hum of my laptop filling the silence around me. I couldn't do this anymore. I wasn't going to let my mother rewrite the narrative painting me as the villain, just because I'd finally stood up for myself. I closed the email, refusing to reply. They'd made their choice. But my parents weren't done. A few days later, I got a call from my aunt, someone I hadn't spoken to in years. I answered, my voice tight. "Alex, it's Aunt Karen," she said, her tone dripping with that forced sweetness that always set my teeth on edge. "What do you want, Karen?" I replied, already bracing for the guilt trip. "I heard about the situation with Tyler. Your mother is beside herself. She says you've completely abandoned your brother in his time of need." I felt my pulse quicken, my grip on the phone tightening. "Did she also tell you that Tyler stole my car, crashed it, and tried to pin it on me? Or that he filed a false police report to cover his tracks?" A pause. I could practically hear her struggling to find a way to twist this in Tyler's favour. "Well," she began, her voice suddenly sharper, "he's your brother. Blood is thicker than water, Alex. I know your parents can be difficult, but you don't turn your back on family." I clenched my jaw, my patience evaporating. Blood is thicker than water, but it's not thicker than self-respect. I'm done being the family doormat. There was a long silence, and then she sighed, her tone dripping with disappointed judgment. "You're making a mistake, Alex. One day you'll regret this." I almost laughed at the irony. Funny, I've been regretting my choices for years. This is the first time I've felt free. I hung up before she could respond, tossing my phone onto the couch. I ran my hands through my hair, my chest tight with a mix of anger and exhaustion. A few hours later, my phone buzzed again. I glanced at the screen, expecting another guilt-ridden message from my parents or a sanctimonious voicemail from Aunt Karen. But it was a different number. "Hello," I answered, my voice sharp. Mr. Parker, a brisk, unfamiliar voice, crackled through the line. "This is Dana Reynolds from Tyler's apartment complex. Are you his emergency contact?" My heart sank. "What now?" I was, but that's no longer the case. "What's this about?" I replied, trying to keep my tone steady. There was a pause, then a polite cough. "I'm calling to inform you that Tyler Parker is being evicted. We've attempted to contact him several times, but he's been unresponsive. Given the situation, we thought it best to reach out to his listed emergency contact." I closed my eyes, leaning back against the couch. Of course this was coming. Tyler had always lived like the world owed him a free ride. Without me to cover his bills, it was only a matter of time before reality caught up with him. "I'm not his emergency contact anymore," I said, my voice cold. "You'll have to reach out to my parents. They've made it clear they want to handle his messes." The line went quiet for a moment, the woman clearly taken aback. "Understood. Thank you for your time." I hung up, my heart still racing, a bitter taste in my mouth. Tyler's life was falling apart, and I couldn't bring myself to feel bad about it. I'd spent years being his crutch, his safety net, and this was the result. He hadn't learned a single thing. But deep down I knew this wasn't over. My parents weren't the type to just let things go. They would try to pull me back in, drag me down into the chaos I'd fought so hard to escape. And I was ready. I wasn't playing the nice forgiving brother anymore. Not this time. The next 2 weeks were a strange, nerve-wracking calm. I had cut my family off completely. No calls, no texts, no emails. It felt like pulling a deeply embedded splinter out of my soul. Painful, but liberating. But I should have known it wouldn't last. One evening, as I was getting back from work, I found a letter taped to my apartment door. My heart sank the moment I saw my mother's familiar handwriting on the envelope. She had written my full name underlined twice, like a final desperate plea for my attention. I yanked the letter off the door and stepped inside, kicking the door shut behind me. I ripped the envelope open, my hands trembling with a mixture of anger and dread. Alex, I can't believe what you've become. This isn't the son I raised. Your brother is struggling, and you've turned your back on him when he needed you most. You've humiliated this family by dragging this mess into the courts. How could you betray us like this? You've chosen pride over blood, and one day you'll regret it. Mom, I crumpled the letter in my fist, my jaw clenching so tightly it hurt. It took every ounce of self-control I had not to tear the paper to shreds. Betrayal, humiliation, regret. The words echoed in my mind, each one a bitter reminder of the years I had spent sacrificing my own peace for a family that had never once put me first. I tossed the letter onto the kitchen counter, my chest heaving with anger. I had tried to be the good son, the responsible brother, the reliable one, and this was my reward, a family that would rather believe Tyler's lies than face the uncomfortable truth about their golden child. I grabbed my phone and opened my messages. My thumb hovered over my mother's contact, but then I paused, my jaw tightening. No, I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of dragging me back into this emotional tug-of-war. Instead, I scrolled to my lawyer's number, the one I had called when I first filed the police report. I hit the call button, the line ringing twice before a brisk professional voice answered. "Mr. Parker, what can I do for you?" I took a deep breath, forcing the rage in my chest to settle into something colder, more focused. "I want to escalate the charges against my brother," I said, my voice steady. "He's trying to turn my own family against me, and I'm done playing nice." There was a brief pause on the other end. "Understood. I can file for additional claims including emotional distress and defamation given the false police report and your parents' involvement. Are you prepared for the fallout?" I exhaled slowly, staring at the crumpled letter on my counter. I'm more than prepared. The call ended and I felt a strange, hollow calm settle over me. This was it. I was severing the final fragile threads of my old life, cutting off the people who had drained me dry for so many years. The next day, I sent a text to my parents, my fingers moving quickly over the screen. "Me. If you keep trying to interfere, I'll make sure the police hear about every lie you've told to protect Tyler. I'm done being your scapegoat. Consider this my final warning." I hit send before I could second-guess myself, the message vanishing into the digital void with a quiet, satisfying swoosh. 2 days later, I got a call from my aunt, the same one who had tried to guilt-trip me over the phone. I ignored it, then she tried again, and again. By the 5th call, I finally answered, my voice cold and detached. "What do you want, Karen?" She hesitated for a moment, her voice less sharp, almost pleading. "Alex, your parents are worried. They said you threatened to cut them off for good. You can't do this." I let out a bitter laugh, the sound harsh in the quiet of my apartment. "Oh, I can, and I have. But they're your family," she insisted, her tone tinged with desperation. "Family means forgiveness, understanding, patience." I felt my jaw tighten, the anger bubbling back up. "Tell me, Karen, when has my family ever forgiven me? When have they ever understood me or been patient with me?" There was a long, uncomfortable silence on the line. Then finally, she sighed, her voice dropping to a defeated whisper. "They're scared, Alex. They're scared you're never coming back." I closed my eyes, the anger in my chest cooling into something sharper, more precise. They should be. I hung up before she could respond, tossing my phone onto the couch. My heart pounded in my chest, my mind racing with 1,000 thoughts. For the first time, I felt truly completely alone, but I also felt free. No more guilt. No more late-night rescue missions. No more sacrificing my peace for people who would never appreciate it. I took a deep breath, the air feeling cleaner, sharper, like the first deep breath after a long, suffocating winter. I wasn't looking back. Not anymore. 2 weeks later, my phone buzzed as I was settling in for a quiet Friday night. I glanced at the screen, expecting another round of guilt-laden texts from my parents or a rant from Tyler. But this time it was a number I didn't recognize. For a second, I considered letting it go to voicemail, but something in my gut told me to answer. "Hello," I said, my tone wary. Alex, a shaky, familiar voice crackled through the line. It was Tyler. I felt my stomach twist, my free hand clenching into a fist. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice cold. There was a long pause, broken only by the faint, muffled sounds of traffic in the background. I could almost picture him standing on a noisy street corner, his back against the wall, probably holding his phone with trembling hands. I messed up, man. He finally admitted, his voice breaking. "I lost my job. I'm about to get kicked out of my apartment and Mom and Dad won't even talk to me. I don't have anyone else to turn to." I felt a surge of conflicting emotions, anger, pity, exhaustion. I had been waiting for this moment for years, the moment Tyler would finally face the consequences of his reckless, selfish choices. "You did this to yourself, Tyler," I said, my voice flat, emotionless. "You stole my car, crashed it, and then tried to frame me for it. You lied to the police, dragged our parents into your mess, and tried to ruin my life to save your own skin. Why should I help you now?" He let out a shaky breath, the desperation bleeding through the line. "I know, okay, I know I screwed up. But I don't have anyone else, Alex. I'm scared." I felt my jaw clench, my mind racing. I could hear the sincerity in his voice, the genuine fear of a man who had finally hit rock bottom. But I also remembered all the times I had bailed him out, all the sleepless nights, the unpaid debts, the emotional blackmail. "I can't do this anymore, Tyler," I said, my voice steady but cold. "I'm done cleaning up your messes. I'm done being your safety net. You need to stand on your own for once." There was a long, heavy silence. I could hear him breathing, the shaky, uneven breaths of a man who had finally run out of options. "Please," he whispered, his voice cracking. "I'll change, I swear. Just give me one more chance." I closed my eyes, the memories of years of betrayal and disappointment flashing through my mind like a twisted slideshow. The broken promises, the stolen money, the endless lies. "I gave you 100 chances, Tyler," I said, my voice sharp, "and you wasted every single one of them." I heard a choked sob on the other end, a final desperate plea for mercy, but I had nothing left to give. "Goodbye, Tyler," I whispered, my heart hardening, as I pulled the phone away from my ear. "Wait, Alex." I ended the call, the sharp final click echoing through the quiet of my apartment. I felt a strange hollow ache in my chest, like a wound that had finally been torn open after years of slow, silent bleeding. I stared at my phone, my hand trembling. For a moment I considered blocking his number, cutting off the last fragile thread that still connected us, but then I hesitated. Maybe one day he would change. Maybe one day he would finally understand the damage he had caused, the pain he had inflicted on the people who had loved him the most. But I wasn't going to wait for that day anymore. I got up, tossing my phone onto the couch as I crossed the room to the window. I pulled back the curtains, staring out at the dark, bustling city below. The neon lights cast sharp, jagged shadows against the glass, the distant sounds of car horns and muffled conversations drifting up from the street. I took a deep breath, the cold, clean air filling my lungs. I felt the tightness in my chest begin to ease, the weight of years of anger and resentment slowly lifting from my shoulders. I had finally broken free. No more guilt. No more second chances. No more playing the dutiful, sacrificial brother. I closed the curtain, turning my back on the city, and walked away, my steps feeling lighter than they had in years. I was done looking back. Story 2. My sister Elena got married last summer in San Diego, and it took me 2 hours to realise I wasn't actually invited. I was used, sure, budgeted, forgotten, but not invited. I should have noticed something was off the moment I arrived at the venue, and the check-in coordinator blinked at me. Name, Adrian Castillo. I said, adjusting my collar, brother of the bride. She smiled awkwardly and scanned the list. Her finger froze mid-scroll. Oh, you're listed as assisting vendor. I thought it was a joke, truly, I laughed. She didn't. Let's rewind. A month earlier, I got a frantic call from my mom. Elena's caterer fell through, she said, her voice full of that soft urgency she only uses when she needs something. Didn't you help with that company last year? She was referring to a catering service I helped launch for a client. I did their branding. I had contacts, not ownership, but Mom didn't care. Elena really needs this, Adrian, she added, and you're so good at fixing things. So I did. I called in favours, recruited a full crew, even chipped in $2,000 of my own when the venue tacked on late reservation fees. At the time I told myself it was worth it. She's my sister, and I didn't want to be that guy, the one who keeps score. But it turns out I should have kept score, because when I showed up at the reception, the seating chart listed Table 12, family friends, Table 13, groom's cousins, Table 14, overflow, guests. My name wasn't there. Not anywhere. Not even in the overflow. Instead, I got handed a laminated badge, vendor support meal provided upon request. I stared at it numb. The worst part, my sister saw me and didn't even flinch. She gave me a one-armed hug, the kind you give someone you haven't seen in years and don't plan to invite to your next birthday. Thanks again for helping out, she whispered. We really needed someone reliable. Then she walked away. Not, hey, where are you sitting? Not so glad you're here. Just thanks for helping. I found a spot at the far end of the lawn with the waitstaff. One of the guys offered me a water bottle. You with us? He asked, glancing at my badge. I stared at it. I guess I am now. I didn't eat. I didn't dance. I watched. I watched as my parents toasted Eleanor and said things like, she's always been the heart of the family. I watched as the groom's brother gave a speech where he thanked everyone in the bridal party, including the florist, and forgot to mention the person who made sure the entire catering team showed up on time and under budget. Me. I finally slipped away around dessert. Went out to the parking lot, sat in my car, and just stared at the wheel. For a moment I thought maybe I did something to deserve this. Maybe I wasn't close enough to Eleanor anymore. Maybe she just forgot. But forgetting isn't innocent when it costs you thousands of dollars and a seat at the table. It's targeted, intentional. So I drove home, and then I logged into my payment app. $2,000 to the venue, $375 for linen rentals, $125 tip pool I wasn't reimbursed for. I reversed every pending transfer I could. Then I logged into the business portal I'd used to coordinate the service crew and changed the billing information back to my sister's name. Then I drafted an invoice, itemized, professional, cold. The subject line read, Event Support Invoice, Elena Castillo Wedding. I sent it to her, CC'd the groom, blind CC'd our parents. I didn't get a thank you, but I did get a text from my mom. Adrian, what are you doing? This isn't how family behaves. I stared at it for a while. Then I wrote back. I was behaving like family when I paid for the damn wedding. Y'all were the ones treating me like the help. The replies came fast after that. Elena's text. You made this about you, typical. Dad's call. Son, this is not the time for drama. But there's never a good time to defend your own dignity. So I didn't respond. I just left the invoice sitting there unpaid. Let it sting. It's wild. You grow up thinking family's supposed to be unconditional, but what they really meant was we'll love you as long as you play your role. Mina, support crew, background character, human wallet, until I quit the cast. That night, I poured myself a drink, opened a fresh notebook and scribbled something on the first page. From now on, if I'm not on the guest list, I'm not footing the bill. I tore out the page, stuck it on the fridge. That was the last favour I did for anyone who couldn't remember to save me a seat. The week after Eleanor's wedding was the quietest I'd ever heard from my family. Not peaceful quiet. More like don't poke the bear quiet. No calls, no texts, no group chats, not even the usual recycled memes in the Castillo cousins thread. Just complete silence, which in my family is code for we're plotting something behind your back. Then came Sunday dinner, a weekly ritual at my parents' house. Roasted chicken, passive-aggressive comments, and a rotating list of reasons why someone wasn't good enough for my sister. I showed up late on purpose. As soon as I stepped through the door, I felt the air shift. My mum greeted me with a tight-lipped smile. Dad barely looked up from his beer. Elena wasn't there, of course. Too emotionally drained, I assumed. Only my younger brother Luis dared to break the tension. He gave me a low fist bump. Still wild how they gave you a staff badge. Still wild how I paid for the linens, I muttered. He snorted and went back to his phone. Dinner was stiff. Polite, controlled, the kind of politeness that tastes like undercooked beef and unresolved tension. Halfway through, my mum cleared her throat. So she said like she was choosing her words with tweezers about the email you sent. Here we go. I think you're making this a bigger deal than it is. Dad nodded, mouth full. You were part of the planning. It's not like we left you out. I was never told I wasn't a guest, I said, but I wasn't treated like one. You sat with the staff, Mum replied flatly. That was just a mix-up. I raised an eyebrow. A mix-up that came with a vendor badge. She didn't answer. Just folded her napkin in half like it might shut me up. Then Dad leaned in. Adrian, you've always been the solid one. Elena's wedding was stressful. You could have just let this go. There it was. That phrase again? You're the solid one. The peacemaker, the reliable sibling, the one who's expected to take the hits and smile through it. I set my fork down. Do you know how many family events I've helped pay for? My mom rolled her eyes. Here we go. No, really, I said. Let's count. Luis's graduation party, I covered the tent rental. Christmas 2 years ago, half the Airbnb. Dad's surprise retirement barbecue, I booked the DJ. And nobody said a word. Not even a thank you. You did those things because you wanted to, Dad said. No, I said. I did them because nobody else would, because you all assumed I'd take care of it. Mom took a sip of wine. Well, you're doing well, aren't you? That's not the point. She looked confused or pretended to be. But Dad wasn't confused. He just shook his head. You sound bitter, son. I laughed. That's because I am. Luis kept his head down, but I saw the corners of his mouth twitch. He got it. He always got it. He was the only one who ever asked how I was doing during late-night parties or picked up extra chairs when everyone else disappeared. After dinner, he followed me out to my car. They're going to spin this into you being emotional, he said quietly. You know that, right? Let them, I replied. They've been spinning my whole life. I'm just finally calling it out. He nodded once. You're not wrong, he said. They just don't like when the background character takes the mic. The next day, the group chat came alive. Cousin Clara. Hey, just a heads up, Elena's saying you caused a scene at the wedding. Uncle Raoul. Not cool, Adrian. She's your sister. Even my godmother jumped in. You know your sister's sensitive. You could have just waited. Waited for what? To be invisible in a nicer font. That same night I got a voicemail from Elena. It started polite. Adrian, I really wish you hadn't done this. Then came the guilt. I didn't mean for you to feel excluded, but it was my wedding, not yours. And finally the dig. You've always been a little dramatic. I thought you'd outgrown that. I deleted it before she could finish. Then I wrote her an email. Short, direct, no heat. Eleanor, I'm not making this about me. You made me a vendor and pretended I was family. I won't be your overdraft account anymore. We're done. I hit send. Then blocked her number. 2 days later, I got a letter in the mail from the venue. Apparently, they were reprocessing vendor payments due to a discrepancy in guest listings and taxable service classifications. Translation, my assistance with the wedding had triggered a review of how Elena's wedding was billed, and it wasn't looking great. The irony, my invoice had protected me legally. Elena's fake gifted services label, not so much. By Friday, I got a call from a mutual friend who worked at the venue. You might want to know, she said your sister tried to claim your help as an in-kind donation for the planner's fee. The venue flagged it. I didn't say much, but inside, I smiled. Because when you're treated like a transaction, eventually someone checks the receipt. Over the next week, my parents sent a string of increasingly frustrated messages. You're embarrassing us. Elena's going through enough. This isn't what Grandpa would have wanted. They tried every tactic. Shame, guilt, emotional blackmail. But I'd gone quiet. Not silent quiet. The kind of quiet that means you can't guilt me anymore. Then came the knock. Sunday morning, 9:14 a.m. I opened the door and found my dad standing there. No grand speech, just, we need to talk. So we did. At my kitchen table with cold coffee between us. He looked older than I remembered. More tired, less sharp. You're really cutting us off, he asked. I'm setting a boundary. You're blowing up the family over a party. I shook my head. No, I'm just refusing to fund a narrative where I'm the background help. He rubbed his face. You've changed. I've just stopped playing dumb. He didn't apologise. But he didn't yell either. He stood up, looked around my apartment and said, You've done well for yourself, then left. That was the closest thing to respect I'd ever gotten from him. That night Louise texted me. They're pissed, but they're shook too. I think they finally believe you're serious. I replied with a photo of the laminated vendor badge. Proof of concept. I wasn't planning to go viral. All I did was post a single photo. Just the vendor badge from Elena's wedding taped to my fridge with the caption, When you sponsor half the reception, but get seated behind the staff buffet. No names, no tags, no hashtags. Just honesty. It was up for 12 hours before it hit 15,000 likes. By the time I woke up, I had DMs from strangers saying things like, You're the cousin I was at my sister's wedding. I felt this in my soul. This is why I eloped. And then the twist, someone on TikTok screenshotted it and made a voiceover slideshow called When the Quiet One Has Receipts. It blew up. Suddenly I wasn't just Adrian the responsible sibling. I was a stand-in for every family's invisible backbone. And Elena, she didn't like that one bit. I knew it reached her when I got a text from an unknown number. You're humiliating us publicly. This isn't over. No name, but the energy, classic Elena. Then came the message from her husband, Brandon. Hey man, just trying to stay neutral here. Can we talk? I didn't reply. Not because I was mad, but because I didn't trust him. People who stay neutral during betrayal aren't neutral. They're complicit. Later that week, Luis called me. Something's up, he said. Elena's freaking out. About the wedding, I asked. No, about the accountant. Apparently, the venue had filed a formal inquiry with the event coordinator and Elena's payment disclosures. They flagged a discrepancy between the reported sponsorships and the actual payment trail, namely me. Turns out when you list someone's services as donated but that someone submits an invoice, it becomes a legal grey area. Elena's attempt to write off portions of the wedding as gifted professional support had now triggered a tax review. And the worst part, she'd dragged Brandon's business into the paperwork too. They shared a joint filing. Now the IRS was asking questions. I didn't gloat. I didn't even smile. Because this wasn't about revenge. It was about reality finally catching up. One night I got a call from an unfamiliar number. I let it ring twice before answering. Hello, Adrian, the voice said. It was soft, nervous, almost whispering. This is Taylor. I'm Brandon's sister. I paused. Okay. I wanted to say I saw your post. And I'm not surprised. Elena's been like this for years. She told me stories. Family trips where Elena stole Taylor's clothes and blamed her. High school drama where she spread rumours to stay the centre of attention. Financial favours she never repaid. I cut her off last year, Taylor said. And now she tells everyone I'm mentally unstable. I swallowed. That sounds familiar. I just wanted you to know, she continued, you're not crazy. She's really good at making people feel like the problem for noticing the pattern. That night I sat with that sentence. She's really good at making people feel like the problem, for noticing the pattern. It echoed through my apartment, because that's exactly what this was. Not one insult, not one party, not one wedding. A pattern. Of being useful until I had needs of my own. Of being dependable until I stopped saying yes. Of being the solid one until I had something to protect. The following Sunday I got a call from Grandma Rosa. Now let me be clear, Rosa is a legend in our family. Sharp as glass, says little, misses nothing. She once roasted an uncle at Christmas dinner so quietly he didn't realise he'd been insulted until dessert. So when I saw her name on the screen, I answered fast. Adrian, she said, how are you holding up? I blinked. I'm okay. I've seen the videos, she said, and I've heard the gossip. You're not wrong. I waited for a but. It never came. I gave Elena the benefit of the doubt for years, she said. That ends now. Pause. You've been carrying too much for too long. That's not your job. I swallowed. Thank you. Then she said something I wasn't ready for. I'm changing the will. I sat up. What? I used to think spreading the assets evenly was fair, but now I know fair isn't always equal. She didn't elaborate. She didn't need to. She just said, keep doing what you're doing. Quiet truth shakes the loudest liars. The next morning I received an email from Elena. Subject, let's put this behind us. It read, you've made your point, congrats. I'm sure you feel powerful now. But you're hurting the family and you need to stop before things get worse. I won't apologise for being stressed at my own wedding. You took it personally when it wasn't meant that way. This doesn't have to go any further. Let's be adults. Let's move on. No sorry. No responsibility. Just gaslighting wrapped in civility. I didn't reply. Instead, I printed the email, filed it next to my receipts. Then came the final twist. Brandon called me. I didn't want to answer, but curiosity got the better of me. Adrian, he said, voice low, I think I'm going to need your help. I said nothing. He sighed. She forged my signature on one of the vendor contracts. Silence. She tried to use it to get out of paying a cancellation fee, but the planner called me directly and it wasn't my signature, at least not one I remember writing. My heart dropped. And I asked. She admitted it when I pressed her. I exhaled. Wow. There's more, he added. She's been redirecting mail. Some bank notices. I only saw them because Taylor started asking questions. He paused. I'm filing for legal separation. I didn't cheer, didn't celebrate. Just said I'm sorry it got to this point. He sighed. Me too. But I think I needed the whole world to see her clearly before I could. It's strange how exposing the truth feels less like revenge and more like a rescue mission. You're not just freeing yourself. You're lighting the way for others who were trapped in the same illusion. A few days later, I posted one final update. A photo of my fridge. Vendor badge still taped there. Next to it, a post-it with a single quote. You weren't the villain. You were the alarm clock. The caption. I don't need apologies. I need peace, and I finally have it. I turned off comments, then went to bed in silence. No buzzing phone, no guilt, no begging. Just peace. Real earned peace. 3 weeks after Brandon filed for separation, I got a letter from Grandma Rosa. Not an email, not a forwarded group chat link. A real handwritten letter, ink smudged at the edges, folded twice, just like the ones she used to tuck into my lunchbox when I was a kid. It read, Adrian, I'm proud of you, not because you won anything, but because you finally stopped pretending it didn't hurt. That silence you carried for years, I heard it. I've decided to put something in motion. You'll hear about it soon, and when you do, I want you to remember you didn't ask for this. You earned it. I set the letter down and just sat there, not in shock, not overwhelmed, just seen. For once, not as the peacemaker, not the wallet, not the utility sibling, just me. Adrian. The next time I saw Elena was at Grandma Rosa's birthday. She walked in, late as always, wearing designer sunglasses and the expression of someone who expected to be treated like royalty in exile. The family split as she passed, parting like waves around her. Nobody asked where Brandon was. Nobody dared mention the IRS audit that was quietly making its way through her mailbox. I didn't say a word to her. I didn't need to. My existence was enough. Rosa pulled me aside halfway through dinner, told the lawyer she said I'm changing the beneficiaries. I opened my mouth, but she cut me off. No speeches, no guilt. Just this: I want my legacy to go to someone who tells the truth even when it's inconvenient. I nodded, blinking more than usual. She reached up, patted my cheek like I was still 12, and added, "And you better not waste it on everyone else's fires. Let the takers burn their own bridges next time." A week later, the documents came in. I wasn't just added to the will, I was made executor of the entire estate. It was more than money, more than property. It was a message that the kid who used to take the fall now held the keys, that the optional +1 now held the master list, that I wasn't second, I was the standard. Elena called. Of course she did. She started polite. Adrian, Grandma must have told you. I just want to say whatever she's doing, I know it's not personal. Then she pivoted. I mean, it can't be. You and I, we're different people. Always have been. And finally the plea. Can we at least try to fix this before the lawyers make everything official? I let her talk. Then I simply replied, I'm not angry anymore, but I'm also not obligated anymore. Then I hung up. Luis stopped by my new apartment a few days later. He brought churros and a six-pack, didn't even take off his shoes, just flopped onto the couch and handed me a bottle. "You good?" he asked. "Yeah," I said honestly. "For the first time I think I am." He popped a churro in his mouth. "Whole family's weird now," he mumbled, like they're trying to figure out what happens when they can't guilt you anymore. "They get quiet," I said, "or louder for show." He laughed. Then he said something I'll never forget. "You changed the family tree, bro, not with fire, with boundaries." Not long after Brandon sent me a message. "Divorce finalized, I'm moving out of state. Thank you for not making me feel crazy when I started seeing who she really was." I responded with one sentence. "Thanks for listening before it was too late." One night I went through my old drawers and found the vendor badge again. Still laminated, still dusty. I held it for a minute, then finally tossed it. Not in anger, just release, because it didn't hold weight anymore. I didn't need it to remind me of who I used to be. I had proof of who I am now in the peace I feel walking into my apartment, knowing nobody expects me to fix what they broke. I started traveling again. Italy, Portugal, small towns and strange markets and sunrises I didn't have to share with anyone. No wedding texts, no "can you chip in," no guilt-laced ingratitude, just space. And me learning that peace isn't the absence of family. It's the absence of obligation to the wrong version of it. They still talk about me. I know. Rosa tells me sometimes, she'll call and say things like, "Elena's still telling people you faked the receipts," or "Your mom says she doesn't understand you anymore." To which I reply, she never tried to. Sometimes people ask me, "Do you regret it, blowing it all up?" No, because I didn't blow it up. I just stopped building the stage. They were the ones who performed. I just cut the lights. And when they ask if I'm lonely, I say this. I'd rather be alone at my own table than ignored at theirs, because the seat they refused me, I replaced it with an entire room of my own. The other day I hosted a dinner, just 6 friends. No big thing, wine, home-cooked pasta, music low enough to talk over. And halfway through, one of them raised a glass and said, "To Adrian, for showing us that walking away can sometimes be the most loving thing you do for yourself." Everyone clinked glasses. I sat back in my chair, watching the people who had chosen me, not for what I could give, but for who I was. And I finally understood. The goal was never to get a seat at their table. The goal was to stop fighting for crumbs and build a better one. For myself, and anyone else who needed a place to feel whole again. Story 3. They used my money to throw a party I wasn't invited to. And I didn't find out until I showed up with the drinks in one hand and a gift in the other, only to be met with a glittery sign taped to the front door. "No drama in 2025. Stay home, budget bro." Budget bro. I stood there dumbfounded, champagne bottles slipping in my grip. The December wind biting at my face while laughter spilled from inside. My name wasn't on the guest list, but apparently I had financed half the damn thing. Ava's voice rang out from the living room. "Hey, did you put out the extra sparklers?" "Check with Miles," my mother called back, voice light and fake. No way, he probably forgot them, like always. Laughter. My little brother Cole chimed in next. He's probably writing another heartfelt budget plan for us. More laughter. Someone clinked a glass. Then a girl someone I didn't recognize snorted. That one hit harder than the cold. They didn't know I was out there, or maybe worse. They did. I crouched, set the neatly wrapped box on the doorstep, and walked back to my car without knocking. The gift tag said to Ava a robotics kit she'd been asking for since September. I'd paid extra for express shipping so it would arrive before New Year's. Not that it mattered anymore. I didn't cry on the drive home. I didn't scream or call anyone. I just drove in silence. No music, no thoughts. Just me and the growing realization that I was nothing more than an ATM in their eyes. A family-sponsored financial product with a pulse. I got home, set the champagne on the counter and didn't even bother putting it in the fridge. I dropped my keys in the bowl and stood in the kitchen like a guest in my own space. Then I turned off my phone and slept. 12 hours, no alarms, no guilt. For once I felt nothing, and it was kind of perfect. The next morning came with noise. My phone had 27 missed calls, 39 texts, and one group voicemail that sounded like it had been recorded mid-hysteria. Liam, Where the hell are you? Why would you do this? What kind of person ruins their family's party? I stopped the playback. They thought I had done something, that I had embarrassed them. They had no idea that I hadn't even stepped inside, that all I'd done was leave. And apparently that was the worst thing I could have done. But this didn't start on New Year's. No, this had been building for years, quietly, slowly, like rust on metal. You don't notice the damage until the thing snaps in your hands. It started with just a little help. A phone bill here, a car repair there, Ava's school project, Dad's dentist appointment, Cole's lost job, Mum's vacation deposit that somehow became a full flight and hotel package. I paid for all of it. Not because I was rich, I wasn't. I worked IT, paid rent on time, took care of myself, but I'd gotten used to hearing, "You're the responsible one." And somewhere along the way, responsible became available. And then obligated. And finally just invisible. The weirdest part, they stopped asking. Somewhere along the line they just expected. I'd get PayPal requests labelled things like ++ with no explanation. If I hesitated, there were follow-up texts, guilt, sarcasm, passive aggression dressed as humour. Mum once joked, "You should be a sponsor on our family's GoFundMe page." Cole called me our personal bailout. I always laughed, on the outside. Inside it burned. They threw the words around like jokes, but I started to feel it, that bitterness spreading. The part of me that wondered what would happen if I stopped paying, if I disappeared. One night, after helping Ava build her science fair volcano that I also paid for, I walked past the living room and overheard them. "They act like we owe them something," Cole said. "Liam's just bored," Mom added. "Single. Too much time to think." Then came Ava's voice, soft but sharp. "I think he likes feeling needed." They all laughed, like I was pathetic, like I was some sitcom side character. And I stood in the hallway holding the empty glue gun, realizing I'd been giving to people who didn't see me. They just saw what I could do for them. And yet I stayed, kept paying, kept smiling, because the alternative felt worse. Until that sign. That glitter-covered smug little sign on the door. "Stay home budget, bro." It was meant to sting, and it did. But it also woke something up in me, because I finally saw it clearly, the way they positioned me, not as a brother, not as a son, as a joke with a debit card. And so I left the gift, left the party, and went home. Not defeated. But done. They didn't expect me to walk away. That much was obvious. Because the moment I went quiet, the group chat exploded. It started with vague confusion. Where did Liam go, then quickly turned into fire? "Cole dude, you seriously left? What the hell? Mom, Liam, this isn't funny. Come back and apologise. Ava, I can't believe you'd ruin New Year's for us." Each message stacked like bricks around my chest, but I didn't respond. I just stared at the screen and realised something important. Not one of them asked if I was okay. Just accusations, like I committed a crime by not letting them drain me. Then the phone rang. "Mom?" I let it ring out. Then Dad. Then Cole. By the 5th call, I turned my phone off again. They didn't want an explanation. They wanted control. The next day, I checked the family group page, the same page where they'd once uploaded photos from family trips I'd funded but was never in. And there it was, a full-blown post from Mom. We won't name names, but some people don't know how to be part of a family. Some people let their ego get bigger than their heart. Beneath it, hundreds of comments. Her friends, old neighbours, family friends I hadn't spoken to in years. "That's so awful. You guys deserve better. Must be hard carrying everyone. Hope they come to their senses." That's when it hit me they weren't just hurt. They were building a narrative, one where I was the villain. The selfish son who walked away from his loving family on New Year's Eve. And I had receipts. Literal ones. Over $38,000 worth of bank statements, email threads, and PayPal transfers that told a very different story. 3 days passed. No apology. Just more silence layered with guilt-soaked posts and carefully curated sob stories. Until one afternoon I opened my email. Subject, "I'm sorry." From Ava. I hesitated, then clicked. "Liam, I didn't write the sign. I need you to know that." I saw it on the door the night of the party and my stomach dropped. It was Mum's idea. She thought it was funny. Dad laughed. Cole said you wouldn't notice. But you did. And I don't blame you for walking away. I would have too. I know I've been part of the problem. I made jokes, I stayed quiet, I took the money. I never said thank you, but I want to now. Thank you for the robotics kit, for the school trip, for always showing up. I wish I had stood up for you sooner. Ava, I read the email twice, then again. It was small, but it was real. The first real thing I'd received from my family in years. And it came from the youngest one. The next morning I got a knock on my door. Not a loud one, a hesitant, uneven knock that told me exactly who it was before I opened it. Ava stood there, hoodie, red eyes, no makeup, hands stuffed in her sleeves. "Can I come in?" she asked quietly. I nodded. She stepped inside and immediately broke down. "I told them the sign was cruel," she said, crying into her hands. "I told them it wasn't a joke. They just rolled their eyes." I stood still, unsure what to do. "You're not crazy," she said. "You're not dramatic. They use you, and when you stopped letting them, they turned on you." She looked up, mascara smeared. "That's not family." I handed her tissues, sat across from her, let her talk. And for the first time, someone in that family listened to me. Ava stayed for an hour. Then she left whispering, "I'm not going back there. Not until they admit what they did." I didn't say anything, but inside something shifted. I wasn't alone in this anymore. That night I reopened my phone. All the unread texts, all the missed calls, and one new message from Cole. "You think you're better than us now. Hope your little tantrum was worth it." I didn't reply. Instead, I uploaded a folder to a private drive. Inside a timeline of financial support from the last 5 years, every wire transfer, every invoice, every email. I titled it Proof I Was There, and I left it alone. Not for revenge, not yet, but because I knew how this family worked. They'd paint me as the problem until the paint started to crack. And then they'd come back not to say sorry, but to clean up their mess. And this time I'd be ready. Sure enough, the next day I got a call from an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. Then I played it back. "Liam, this is James Marsh. I'm with the Financial Claims Unit from First Track Credit. We've received a dispute filed under your name regarding a family-based cosign on a private loan." I paused. "What loan?" I checked my credit app. There it was. A $10,000 personal loan attached to my social security number. I never took out that loan. But someone did with me as the cosigner. I knew who. And suddenly this wasn't just emotional. This was criminal. I called Ava. "Did Mom or Cole say anything about a loan?" Silence. Then she exhaled sharply. "Oh my God. Yes. They were talking about consolidating some debts, said they had a plan, said Liam won't even notice he loves feeling helpful." My blood turned cold. "They used me," I said. Ava's voice cracked. "They stole from you. And now I had proof. So I made a decision. It wasn't about the money anymore. It was about ending the pattern. Before they buried me under their lies, I thought they couldn't shock me anymore. But identity theft, that was a new level. They didn't just bleed me dry emotionally. Now they were signing my name on debt papers like it belonged to them. I didn't scream, didn't throw anything. I opened my laptop and started documenting everything. I made folders. One for bank records. One for email receipts. One for screenshots of every transaction I'd covered in the last 5 years. I even went through old texts downloading each PayPal just this once request. The casual guilt trips. The birthday party invoices I'd paid, Ava's school events, Dad's medication, Mum's subscription services, Cole's car payments. I colour-coded them by family member. By the end of the night I had 86 documents. That's when I called Jasmine, my friend from college. She worked in legal finance now. I trusted her with everything. "Can you meet?" I asked. "I'm already clearing my afternoon," she said. The next day we met in a quiet cafe. She showed up with a binder, legal pad, no smile. I handed over a flash drive. 10 minutes later, she closed her laptop and looked at me like I'd just given her gold. "This isn't petty," she said. "This is fraud, and if you want to press charges, you've got a case, a very solid one." I didn't even blink, do it. She leaned forward. "You sure?" "I was raised to think protecting my family meant protecting their secrets," I said. But all that did was destroy me slowly. She nodded. "We'll start with a formal cease and desist. Then we initiate credit fraud reporting with the loan agency, and if needed, civil restitution." "What about the family?" She shrugged. "They wanted war. You're just the first one to bring armour." The letter went out the next day. It was short. Firm. Jasmine had titled it Notice of Financial Misuse and Unauthorized Credit Activity. A few hours later, I received a group message from Mom. What is this A lawsuit after everything we've done for you? I didn't reply. A minute later, Cole texted, You're seriously dragging your own family into court. That's sick, man. I responded with one sentence. You used my name without permission. That's not family. That's felony. He went quiet. But the silence didn't last long. The next day they retaliated. Mom posted on Facebook again. A photo of her crying on the porch captioned, When your own child becomes your worst enemy, pray for us. It went viral in the worst way. Pity comments poured in. This is heartbreaking. No child should turn on their parents like that. Hope you find peace. And then Ava posted. That photo staged, that caption a lie. I watched them use him for years. And when he finally said no, they tried to bury him with debt. She attached a screenshot. It was a PayPal request from Mom titled Emergency, rent and groceries dated a week after she'd called Liam obsessive. Then another image, a photo of Liam's name next to the loan contract. The comments turned quickly. Wait, they stole from him. Why would you post that if you were in the wrong sounds, like he was the only one holding it all together? Mom deleted her post an hour later, but the damage was done. Not to me, to their story. Within 3 days, Jasmine got confirmation the loan agency had flagged the account for fraud. My name was cleared. Their application was under review by investigators. They'd tried to bind me to their mess permanently, and now they were stuck with it alone. I should have felt triumphant, but I didn't. I felt lighter, like I'd been carrying something on my shoulders that wasn't mine for a decade, and now it was gone. No drama, no theatrics, just gone. The next knock at my door came from someone I didn't expect. Kelly, Cole's wife. She stood there awkward, holding a paper bag. I brought muffins, she said. I know that sounds dumb. I stepped aside, waved her in. She sat down, exhaled. He lied to me. She looked up. I thought you were the distant one, the one who didn't want to be close. But you weren't cold. You were tired. She pulled out a file folder. I went through our joint bank account. Found transfers with your name on them. He took money from you, then told me he was working weekends. My jaw clenched. She shook her head. I'm done covering for him. I just came to say, I see you now. She left the folder and a handwritten note. Thank you for walking away at Red. It gave me permission to do the same. 2 weeks later I moved. New place, clean walls, big windows, far from all of them. I changed my number, closed the family chat, blocked Cole and Mom on everything, left Dad's number on silent. Only one contact stayed unblocked. Ava. She sent me photos sometimes of her latest project, of her robotics team, of the poetry she started writing because she wanted to use words like you do. Sometimes she wrote letters. I kept them all in a drawer. Proof that not everything was a waste. Proof that someone noticed. I never responded to Mom's last voicemail, but I listened to it once. I don't know who you are anymore. You've changed. She said it like an insult. But she was right. I had changed. I stopped trying to belong in a house where I was only welcome when I paid for my spot. I stopped being the glue for a family that was fine watching me snap. I chose myself. And that's the change they'll never forgive. It's been 3 months since the last message. 3 months since I shut the door and didn't look back. 3 months since my name stopped echoing in family group chats, financial requests, or public guilt posts. And for the first time in years, I feel like I can breathe. I live in a quiet neighbourhood now. No more porch signs, no champagne bottles handed back unopened. Just bird song in the morning and a kettle that whistles gently when it's ready. My apartment is small, but it's mine. No one has the key, and no one asks what's in my fridge or how much is in my account. I know now that peace isn't the loud celebration they always wanted. It's choosing to make coffee in silence without a crisis lurking in your inbox. Ava visits sometimes. We keep it casual, a movie night here, a Sunday hike there. She still brings me her little wins, her latest coding project, her robotics medal, the email from her teacher saying she's got a real future in tech. She told me the other day I didn't want to become them, and you helped me see the difference. I don't cry when she says things like that anymore. I just listen, let her have her space, Let myself feel what it means to be appreciated, not because I paid, but because I showed up. A few weeks ago, I received a letter. Real paper, a stamp, the kind of thing no one sends anymore. It was from Dad. I almost didn't open it, but curiosity won. Inside were 3 lines. I was raised not to ask for help. I pass that shame on to you. I'm sorry for making you carry what was mine. That was it. No pleas, no excuses, no demands for money or attention. Just a fragment of honesty I never thought I'd get. I didn't respond. Because some closure doesn't require a conversation, just acknowledgement. Then last week, Mum tried to call again. Blocked number, straight to voicemail. Her message. We lost everything, you happy now? I wasn't angry. I didn't smile. I just sat there, the phone pressed to my knee, and realised something important. I didn't feel anything. Not guilt. Not regret. Not even relief. Just neutrality. Like her voice no longer had hooks. Like I had finally stopped bleeding for people who only felt love when it came with a receipt. I told Jasmine I didn't want to pursue further charges. The fraud case was closed. The loan had been reversed. The civil claims were dismissed in mediation. It was over. The law had done what it could. The rest that was between them, and whatever reflection they could stomach. Jasmine asked me one last question. Do you want to make a public statement? I thought about it, then said no. I didn't need the world to know what happened, just the people who mattered. And Ava already did. Sometimes I get messages from strangers, people who saw Ava's post or heard about the court case. They write things like, I'm the budget bro in my family too. You inspired me to stop setting myself on fire to keep everyone warm. Thank you for reminding me that love doesn't mean debt. I never expected to be someone's example. I just didn't want to keep shrinking for people who kept asking me to disappear. Ava once asked me, do you think they'll ever change? I didn't answer right away. Then I said maybe, but that's not my job to find out. She nodded quietly. You changed, she said. That's what matters. There's a framed photo on my desk now. Me and Ava sitting side by side on the edge of a small dock. She's smiling. I'm not looking at the camera, just watching the lake. On the back of the frame, she wrote, You were always there. I just had to learn how to see you. It's the only family photo I kept, because it's the only one that tells the truth. You know what the hardest part of walking away was? Not the backlash, not the loneliness, not the fear of what came next. It was realising how much of my life I'd spent performing for people who never stayed for the show. I was the opener, the technician, the clean-up crew, but never the star. They only looked at me when the lights flickered. Never when I was standing in them. But now I build my own stage. Small, quiet, real. I used to think peace was something that happened when other people changed. But peace is what happens when you change, when you stop trying to fix a system that only ever broke you. I didn't cut them off. I just stopped reaching for a lifeline that was actually a leash. And now that I've let go, I'm not falling. I'm free. Last week I ran into an old friend from high school. She blinked when she saw me. Liam, you look taller. I laughed. I think I just stopped carrying people. She smiled. It suits you. It does. Some people call what I did revenge. Some say it's selfish. Others say it's dramatic. But here's what I call it. A beginning. The one I earned. The one that doesn't ask me to apologise for finally choosing myself. The one that has nothing to do with debt, guilt, or glitter signs taped to doors. Just a man, standing in the quiet, breathing easy, and finally home.